Hello, my name is Gary Soba, and I'm the Tournament Director for the Wells Fargo Championship, and I can't tell you how excited we are to invite you to our 2021 Women's Day presented by our good friends at Atrium Health. Folks, 2 years ago we were at Quail Hollow. Obviously, we wish we were there today, but I think Martha put together a wonderful program that culminates with LPGA great Annika Sorenstam producing a short game video for us. Trust me, I need to watch that myself. You know, while we're here for golf, it's really about charity. The Wells Fargo Championship has donated nearly $25 million to charity since its inception. So we want to thank you for being here. We want to thank Wells Fargo, and we want to thank Atrium Health for all you do for the championship. So we hope you have a wonderful day, and I want to turn it over to WBTV's Mary King to host today's ceremonies.
Thank you so much, Gary. I am so excited and honored to be hosting the second annual Wells Fargo Championship Women's Day presented by Atrium Health. And as Gary mentioned, my name's Mary King. I co-anchor WBTV this morning alongside John Carter, Mondays through Fridays from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. on WBTV News. And I'm also one of the co-hosts of QC Morning at 9 a.m. on WBTV. I actually started with WBTV in August of 2019 and have been a reporter and anchor in television news for about 13 years now. And most of that time has been on morning shows, and I love helping people start their day. But that also means my day starts at 2 a.m. when the alarm goes off. So full confession, between trying to be a wife, a mom to a 2.5-year-old, and all the other roles we all take on, while also usually needing a nap, I can find it hard, and a struggle really to focus on health and wellness. And that is why I'm so excited that today's theme of Women's Day is health and wellness, and I hope you all are just as excited as I am to get ready for an incredible time. We are going to hear from wonderful female panelists to discuss mental, financial, and our physical wellness. And we will also get some healthy lifestyle tips and a stretching demonstration to help us out. And then you're going to want to stick around because we have a very special short game clinic with the greatest female golfer of our generation, Annika Sorenstam. So without further ado, let's get right to it. Our first panelist is Julie Elian, a sports psychologist. She's developed one of the premier sports psychology practices in the world, the Center for Athletic Performance Enhancement, or CAPE. Currently, Julie works with multiple players on the PGA Tour, LPGA, NBA, WNBA, the NFL, MLB, the list just goes on. And over the last 15 years on the PGA Tour, she's coached golfers who have won 10 majors and more than 50 professional tour events. But perhaps the most powerful aspect of Julie's work is her ability for her teachings to transcend beyond professional sports as she preaches the importance of personal fulfillment followed by athletic and professional resiliency. And she is joining us live this morning. I'm so excited about this. How are you doing, Julie?
Well, we just returned from the Masters, and what a powerful, amazing week. So I'm doing great. Some blisters on my feet, but besides that, doing great. It was an amazing week. Considering what the state of the world is, they pulled it off beautifully. So I'm smiling. It was great.
It's good to see you smiling. And you're right, Julie. I want to start there. We talk about the state of the world, and we are just in such a different place. And I know over the past year, the talk about work and personal life balance has been such top of mind for so many people. And so let's start there because we are seeing things reopen. We are seeing events go back kind of to quote unquote normal. And now we're getting more change. So how do we continue to balance what work and what life looks like as we all continue to wade the pandemic together?
I'm all about self-care, and that means different things to different folks. And the athletes kind of talk about it more they talk about recovery, how to work hard, rest hard, play hard. And so when I think about this time, I really recommend people find a way to take good care of themselves. And that could mean, a bunch of different things, from physical exercise to doing things they enjoy to taking some breaks from work. I mean, this Zoom world is amazing that we have the technology, but it's exhausting in different ways. And so I'm all about self-care and whatever that means to the individual.
And on those lines then, how do we create more intentionality in that self-care, that focus of going, hey, I need to take care of myself first before I'm going to do these other things well? What are some steps we can take to be intentional in making sure we're reserving that time?
Well, Mary, that is the word of the day. I use that word all the time. And one of the metaphors I use is when you're on an airplane and they say, put the oxygen mask on yourself first so that you can help the person next to you. So I say that all the time. So it's really important because especially those of us that are mothers or in the helping profession or in healthcare, just to name a few things, it's just really important that we are clear and intentional and not just say, oh, we'll get to ourselves later that day, because it can turn into a hamster wheel if we don't set specific goals.
And when you're working with people specifically, do you make suggestions like setting an alarm on your phone or reminders of that self-care? I mean, we set alarms for everything else. We set reminders for meetings and everything else. Should we be prioritizing it that much where it's built into the day?
Absolutely. So I kind of gather themes up, and my theme for the last 6 months has been set an alarm and start your day writing down 5 things you're grateful for. And, you might rattle off family or the roof over my head, but really think about, what qualities inside yourself are you grateful for? What in the world are you grateful for? And start every day like that. It really brings a beautiful way to set the intention for the day.
And because you love that word intentionality so much, Julie, I want to stay there for a minute because I think it is important. And I think it's just so easy for us to get lost in the world that we're in and also to get lost just in comparing ourselves to others. So how do we manage this day-to-day? We're intentional with ourselves, but not measure our best by somebody else's best. I just think that's so easy to do right now. And what can our best look like? How do we set that goal?
So one of the things I feel is really important is I really believe in looking inside oneself. So, I could say the same thing to everybody, but we're all individuals. So really finding what means something to you and, going with that. If somebody gets peace of mind by gardening, if somebody gets peace of mind by, individually what they can do for themselves. I was taking a walk with a girlfriend this morning and we're masked up. And I realized we hadn't looked into each other's eyes. We were just parallel walking. And I said, let's just look at each other. These are just crazy times. So that moment of intimacy, literally just looking at each other, was something that really benefited us both.
And that's part of communication. And I think that a lot of us just don't stop to pause to go that extra mile, especially right now. I mean, we haven't even been able to hug people for so long, nonetheless stop and just, stare with someone that we know personally. Right. So let's talk on communication for a little bit. Once we better take care of ourselves, we can give that overflow. We can communicate better with others. What does that look like in these times to really build that communication with those that we work with and those in our personal lives as well?
Great question. Something we all tend to do, and I even had a moment of doing it with you right now, which is we start thinking of the answer before someone's finished asking the question. So one thing I want to just remind everyone is to listen. Listening is an incredible strategy in creating better communication. And one aspect of that is listening and then even repeating back what I heard you say is, so it kind of lifts the communication to another level where you're actually really hearing each other, whether that be a friend, a family member, someone you're working with. It just slow down and really take in what somebody's saying.
That's so important. And Julie, something that made me think of was the fact that because we've been on this virtual world for so long, we've been doing these Zoom meetings, we've been emailing so much, it was already easy to misconstrue someone over email before all of this, right? And now we're on these virtual meetings, and sometimes cameras are turned off, and sometimes we're not really getting to look at the person. And so if you feel like maybe there is some miscommunication in the workplace, or you're maybe struggling because this virtual world has maybe made it more complicated for you to communicate with those around you, what are some suggestions you have for people to work through maybe some more tense situations or conflict in the workplace in a time when communication does look so different?
So another great question. I mean, one aspect of that would be to think about who you're speaking with, your employee, your peer, and really take a moment and think about what they might be going through that day. So, I think trying to find a human in all of us might be really helpful. We will get through this, but these little gems of moments of connecting moments to moments that are intimate and real will help us all get through to this. And the technology piece, even now, maybe turn to the person next to you and just note that you don't know what's going on with them, but think the best things for them, and let's get through this together.
Wow. It can be so easy to feel isolated in this world and in these Zoom boxes, right? But you're exactly right. I think what I took from your response there was just valuing people, right? We want to pour into people and let them know, hey, like you said, we're all in this together. So that being said, if we're valuing people in the workplace, what are some ways we can encourage those around us in this time? What are some ways we can let that overflow, some positivity pour into our spaces that we're working in? Once again, both in our work life and in our personal life.
So attitude. In real estate, location, in our lives and work and at home, attitude. I think it's real easy to slip into being negative or sad. I mean, we are all dealing with a lot of grief and loss, and I want one to work through that and be real about that, but also finding that place where you can have a good attitude at work and at home, and check yourself, like, am I having a good attitude? Because that will go so far.
So it's okay to have those deeper discussions as we've been talking about, but it's how we do it. That is very powerful. And something that I was noting, Julie, that when you're working with so many athletes, and of course, you're the pro in this, and you get on that individual level with people, and that means you find their strengths and you find their unique abilities. And for people who are watching this right now and maybe wondering, hey, what do I have to offer? What could you give them as advice as they, kind of dig a little bit deeper? We're talking about health and wellness and finding our best selves. How can we dig deeper and find those unique qualities that we have to pour out into our workplace?
So an exercise I do with a lot of the athletes, and I recommend to all of us, is to actually look at the qualities you have to offer. Spend some time writing them down. What am I good at? And maybe I'm a good friend. Maybe I'm a good listener. Maybe I'm very visual. And then perhaps, I don't like to say negative qualities, but qualities we can improve on. And take a look at yourself. And, I also want to just take this time to just note, if you feel like you need assistance, taking a look at yourself or help during these times, reach out. There's a lot of mental health therapists out there, so get the help you need, but support each other. But it starts with you, like really taking the moment to look inside and see what you're best at, and be your own cheerleader, be your own best friend. I was watching an interview last night of Xander Schauffele, and he went in the water on 16 on Sunday. And the interviewer asked him, would you have done anything different? And he said, no, I made the right choice for me at the time. So he was backing himself up. I loved it. I just loved it.
We can be our own worst critic. That is for sure, Julie. So that is really powerful
Yes.
to keep in mind that we have to cheer ourselves on. You know, it's not every day that we get the chance to talk with someone like yourself who's worked with so many pro athletes who have not only competed in the professional level, but have won in big ways. So I'd love to pick your brain just a little bit and know, what is it in those athletes that we see succeed on that high level that makes the difference between winning the championship and maybe finishing a little bit lower down the pack?
Oh, it's such a complicated issue. And as I really believe in working with the individual, and some of the sports I work with are team sports. And so that's a whole different deal, being a teammate. But I guess I want to stress again, being your own best friend, positive self-talk, that makes a huge difference. Acknowledging what you've done right, clear thinking, setting an intention for the round, for the competition, a mental intention, trusting your tool set. That helps a lot of these athletes. No tinkering while you're competing, trust what you've built already, and then go with that. And every athlete I've worked with, and I work with some CEOs, we set mental intentions for the round, for the game, for the meeting. How do I want to be inside myself while I'm competing? And stick to that. And sometimes we have mantras, maybe the mantra will be confidence or peaceful, or something that builds you up at the same time, kind of brings your focus in.
Such good information. Before we wrap up, Julie, I know there's got to be a lot of women who are watching that are saying, as we've talked about already, this year has been so tough. They've been in multiple roles. You've been a mom and a wife and an employee and a friend and a sister and all these other roles that we take on every day. And sometimes I've heard women say, especially when it came to being a school teacher for their kids, a lot of virtual learning this year, a lot of women just said, I feel like I was failing. And so I'd love for us, as we're winding down now, for you to be able just to reach out to those women who are watching and have maybe felt like this past year they have failed in some spaces. What would your encouragement be to them as we look forward to this hope that we all have right now that maybe we're getting out of all of this?
So I'm a mom of two wonderful children, and I have a big practice. And the one thing that I feel is most important is actually to tell them that I might not be doing so well all the time, like not be scared of showing my vulnerability. So then it encourages them, my children, to learn how to look at themselves and be their own cheerleaders, but also be okay to say, I'm not having a great day. And, again, that positive self-talk, being your own best friend, the best gift we can give ourselves and our children and our peers is to be kind to ourselves. And that's the biggest lesson we can teach our children. So, full circle attitude with ourselves and our loved ones and those around us, and look in each other's eyes. Look in each other's eyes.
I'm going to be doing that more and more, Julie. Thank you so much. And I'm holding on to the word intentionality. May we all make this an intentional year ahead. Julie Elion, sports psychologist, thank you so much for letting us pick your brain a little bit.
Thank you so much. Be well, everybody. Stay well.
Okay, I know we've been sitting for a little while now, so to get ourselves up and moving, Leanne Caldwell, an athletic trainer in sports medicine for Atrium Health, will be leading us in a stretching demonstration.
Hello, and thank you for joining us this morning for this great event. I'm Leanne, and I'm with Atrium Health. If you're like me, you have been sitting way more than normal this past year. So let's do some exercises together that you can do in between meetings and you can do at home to increase your daily blood flow. Join me now, stand up where you are, and let's start with some deep inhales and exhales. Inhale through your nose and out your mouth. Let's just get a couple deep breaths going. Very good. Let's start with some shoulder stretches. Take your right arm and stretch across your body. Feel free to hold these stretches for at least 30 seconds when you're doing them at home. And now left arm. Since the inception of the tournament, Atrium Health has been providing care for spectators, golfers, officials, and staff. Let's stretch those forearms a little bit. Right hand out, straight. Feel a good stretch. And now left hand. While on the course, you want to make sure that you stay hydrated and protect yourself from the sun. All of our first aid stations will be equipped with sunscreen, so please stop by and lather up. Now let's wake up some of those back and neck muscles that have been asleep while we've been sitting. Join me with 2 thumbs up here. So we're going to make a capital Y, and we're just going to pulse back slightly. You should really feel this in the back of your shoulders. Good posture and keeping your core engaged is always very important. We're going to take that down to a capital T. If you're bringing little ones to the tournament, there is a family care center located at the 17th green if you need to change or feed your little ones. Let's do one more. Let's stretch those hip flexors that are at the front of your hip that really like to shorten up as we've been sitting over the time. Take your right leg back and really sit down a little bit. You should feel this in the back right of your front leg. If you need a little more stretch, you can put your hands above your head. That's a good stretch there. I feel that. And now the other side. Take your left leg back. Sit down just a little bit. You'll feel that in the front of your left leg. Hands above head if you'd like. At Atrium Health, we're proud to have the musculoskeletal staff supporting the Wells Fargo Championship and caring for spectators across the Carolinas. We hope to see you on the course.
All right, so we have covered mental health. We've done some stretching exercises, hit on a little bit of our physical health. But what about our financial health? The last year has been hard for many, but you are not alone. And Beth Renner with Wells Fargo is the perfect person to remind us of that and to help us walk through some questions many of us may have. So Beth, first, good afternoon to you. We want to start with the fact that you work within the Wealth and Investment Management Advice and Planning Center of Excellence at Wells Fargo. So tell me what that means and specifically what you do.
Absolutely. And so thanks for letting me join you today. So I have the privilege of leading the Advice Center, as you mentioned, in the Wealth and Investment and Planning Center of Excellence. And we're really intentional about gathering up subject matter experts on some of these most complex financial decisions that clients have to make. And so I lead the team at the Advice Center. And there's a couple things that when our clients or individuals work with us that we really hope that they walk away feeling. And it's first that they really feel understood and that they walk away saying that advisor really understands what my goals are, what do I want to accomplish with my finances as a whole. The second part I would say is that we want them to feel like they have a financial strategy that's in place. And so that it's a strategy that's important to them. So walking away, having that good understanding that your finances are understood, that you're able to achieve those outcomes. And the last part is that we revisit that strategy or plan on an ongoing basis. I often tell individuals that planning is a lifetime event and that the planning that you do with your financial advisor should evolve with you throughout your life.
All important things, and I think we'll dig into each of these today. At first, though, we're getting the chance to talk with women today, and I understand you all recently did a survey primarily focused on women. Can you tell me more about that survey?
Absolutely. So what was really interesting, we partnered with a research firm called Versta, and we conducted a study on behalf of Wells Fargo that included approximately 2,100 women. And so we were really interested in learning more about how women were feeling and responding to and kind of leading through all the uncertainty and change that was happening, especially given the social, political, economic, and public health concerns over the last year or so. And so what was was really interesting, Mary, some of the things that we found with regards to the study itself is that this idea of resiliency in women, and that 9 out of 10 women see themselves as resilient in times of uncertainty. And quite frankly, I'm not surprised by that, because women have so many things that they're responsible for in their households, and they're used to kind of juggling and having that responsibility. And so you think about their careers, managing the households, the active role that they play with their children, and then being involved maybe with their parents and helping them. And then lastly, in being involved in their community. So it doesn't surprise me that they feel this sense of resiliency. Another thing, Mary, that we found in the survey, it doesn't mean that women weren't stressed or feeling overwhelmed at times during the year, but they were handling it well. As a matter of fact, 2/3 of millennial women and Gen X women said they were extremely anxious when there was a lot of uncertainty. And almost 1/3 said that financial uncertainty has kept them up at night. So they have resiliency, but yet they also carry a lot of stress.
And that, I think it hits the nail on the head. I know so many women who are just like that. You're right. We carry it inside of ourselves, so we don't really vocalize it. And I think that's why it's great we're talking about this today, to say, hey, it's okay to be anxious. A lot of us are feeling the exact same way. So I love some advice and some tips from you to how to deal with that anxiousness when it comes to our finances.
Yeah, absolutely. So we know that we fear what we don't understand, right? And so first and foremost, knowledge is power. Educate yourself on your finances. So ask trusted people in your life who are maybe knowledgeable about money and to give you some practical advice. This could be a family member, or maybe it's a trusted advisor that you already work with. But I would encourage you to dig a little deeper on understanding some of the nuances of finance. The second thing I would say is write down your goals. We know that whatever we write down and develop a plan around, we have a greater chance of achieving them. So having a financial plan with specific goals and action steps can really help you feel like you're more confident about your financial future. And then the last thing, Mary, that I would say is communicate what's important to you when speaking with your trusted advisor. So look beyond your finances when you're doing your planning with your financial future. And so other important aspects in your life, such as your career, your family, kind of your health situation, those are all important things that you should be sharing with your financial advisor so that they can help you make some of those best decisions.
Beth, let's talk about finding a financial advisor, because I've spoken with some friends before. They want a financial advisor. They're a little uncertain of what it looks like to find that person, and maybe even the costs associated with that, what that looks like. So there's some curiosity there. How do we go about finding that right financial advisor for us?
Hey, I interview them. You should interview your financial advisors so that you can understand how they work with clients. Maybe ask them for referrals for you to interview those clients as well. But you should definitely treat it in a way that you would for anything.
I think that that's so important, to be able to do those interviews and to be able to find what is it that works for us individually, because what may be good for one person may not be the best for somebody else. So great advice there, Beth. I want to know too, I know families are so, women specifically with their families are so concerned about education for their kids, what it looks like to be able to provide for their children when they want to go to college, or maybe it's a private school and they're trying to finance that now. What are women thinking about specifically when it comes to financial education for not only teaching their kids, but also being able to provide for them down the road?
Survey shows that women are leading the financial education of their household. So 75% of women that we surveyed say that they're taking this on personally. So we absolutely know it's important to them. And so what's terrific about this finding is that women understand the importance of preparing the next generation for how to handle money and finances responsibly. And so some of the things that they're doing, our survey shows that many young women are reading books about finance, following a financial influencer on social media, or subscribing to a podcast about money and sharing those resources with their children. And so this idea of kind of really leaning in to helping their children understand what's important about finances is really important. And I would encourage individuals to work with their financial advisors to kind of help them find age-appropriate resources as well. And here's what we do know, Mary, is that children as young as 5 years old typically understand the concepts of saving and spending and giving. So women can really empower their children early on by talking openly about money, such as how their hard-earned paycheck helps pay for household expenses. And so taking steps that solidify concepts about money, such as demonstrating how small amounts of change saved in a jar can add up to a large sum of money over time, or giving your children an incentive to defer spending their allowance by matching their savings, are also different ways to support their financial education.
Oh, all good tips there for sure. Let's talk about, though, being able to provide for our children's future education. You talked about how women stay up at night thinking about our finances. I think one of the things many women are thinking about is, how am I going to be able to afford college, or how can I best set up my child to be able to attend college and not have a ton of debt afterwards? What's some advice for people who are planning and trying to be prepared for that future for their children and their education?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, our survey shows that 2/3 of women reported having a financial plan that is specific around their financial goals and how to achieve those goals. And nearly all of them say having a financial plan in place really helped them weather through uncertain times with more confidence. And so spending less and saving more is an important shift they can make during times of uncertainty. So interestingly, nearly all women surveyed reported being involved in financial decisions for their households, and oftentimes serve as the primary financial decision maker. So despite their level of involvement, women are still interested in building their financial knowledge so that they can plan for their future.
So, and you've talked a lot about a plan, which I love. And so for women, we don't want to overwhelm anybody. And hopefully this has been nothing but helpful. Again, nothing more to worry about. So instead, if someone wants to make that plan, what are some steps we can take to be able to get that accomplished so that we're not staying up and worrying at night?
Absolutely. And it goes back to really, again, we fear what we don't understand. So take the time to educate yourself. Build a solid financial foundation by carving out some time to learn about money management and investing. There's tremendous amounts of resources out there. So reading books and articles, talking to your financial advisor or a trusted friend or family member, and ask about educational resources that are available to you. The second part is have a plan. When you set goals and write them down, this gives you really a starting point for building a concrete plan of action and a timeline for achieving your goals. So make sure to include your short-term and long-term goals. Share them with your financial advisors who can help you put your plan to work for you. And then again, it goes back, planning is a lifetime event, and that you should revisit your plan often and continue to seek advice, especially as you move through various stages and kind of when your circumstances change. And so the last part is start today. Invest what you can, where you can. For example, to help encouraging your children or yourself to take advantage of employer retirement plans and making sure to contribute at least enough to take full advantage of the match, or considering establishing an IRA to help build your nest egg. So consider working with a financial advisor who can help you with everything from budgeting to saving for retirement. No matter your current stage of life, focus on starting today to pursue the retirement you envision.
Oh, I love it. Baby steps. Beth, you are so right. Women are resilient, but as we've talked about, we carry a lot on our shoulders, and your tips and advice today have reminded us we don't need to do that. We can't do it alone. We just need to open this conversation. So I so appreciate you having this conversation with us so we can feel better about our financial future. Beth Renner, again with Wells Fargo, we appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
Now that we've covered financial health, let's get back to our physical health. We had that stretching demonstration a little earlier in the program, but let's take some time to dig a little deeper into our physical health, how we can best take care of ourselves in all stages of life. Dr. Sasha Sabir is an obstetrician and gynecologist with Atrium Health. She was born in Canada and says she always envisioned being a surgeon, and her passion for women's health is what eventually led her to pursue her career. So we are so glad to have you with us. Good afternoon, Dr. Sabir.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we are so glad because, we don't talk about our health enough. We kind of just let it, go by the wayside a lot of times. And so I'm glad that we have this opportunity to chat, starting with what we need to know about taking care of ourselves in all stages of life.
So when we think about taking care of ourselves in all stages of life, the most important key thing here is really to focus on preventative care. And when we think about the leading cause of death in the US, it's heart disease. So when we think about staying healthy throughout our lifetime, what we really need to focus on is things to prevent this. So the first thing I always like to talk about is exercise. What the American Heart Association tells us is that we should be getting 150 minutes per week. That's 30 minutes, 5 days a week. And what they talk about is moderate intensity aerobic activity. And so a lot of people wonder, what does that mean? And what it means is pretty simple, actually. It means going for a brisk walk, playing tennis, or even gardening. And, a lot of people get focused on, well, I need to start an exercise regimen. And that sounds kind of intimidating, but it's actually really simple. All we need to do is really get moving, get outside. Even if you're getting 10 minutes, it all adds up. You end up getting 10 minutes 3 times a day, and all of this adds up. So the next thing I recommend to all of my patients is a heart healthy diet. So that means a diet full of vegetables, full of fruit, whole grains, and fiber. It's really important that they keep up with their physical exams and their visits with us because, women go through many transitions during their lifetime. And a lot of the transitions we like to glamorize, but sometimes they can be really difficult. So, a perfect example of this is giving birth. The process of giving birth is a really special and beautiful thing. But the time immediately after birth can be very isolating and very overwhelming. And the same is true for things like menopause. There's so many hormonal changes taking place that can lead to mental changes, physical changes, and all of this can be really difficult. So it's really important for women to know that they're not alone during these times. We are here as their physicians to really partner in their health. And so it's important for them to know that we're here to guide them through all of those transitions and that they're not alone during those times. And then finally, the next most important thing they can do is making sure that they're keeping up with all of their screening.
And Dr. Sabir, I want to jump in on that because you said a lot of wonderful things there, and I want to kind of dig in a little deeper on some of those points you made. Let's start with those screenings. As we age, we can't see what's happening inside of our bodies, so sometimes you don't even know what you really need to be screened for. How do we know when those routine screenings that it's time to be checked out for certain things when maybe we don't even realize stuff's happening inside our bodies?
So again, that goes back to really counting on us as your physicians to be partners in your care. That's what we're here to guide you through for. So one of the things that many of the things we screen for when our patients come to Atrium Health depend on family history or medical history. So it really is individualized, but there's also things that we routinely do universally for all of our patients. So for me, when a patient comes to me, I'm always going to check if she is up to date, for example, on her cervical cancer screening. I want to make sure that her pap smears are up to date, that she's getting them at regular intervals. The next thing I think about is breast cancer. Breast cancer is the most diagnosed cancer in the US in women. It's the second leading cause of cancer deaths in women. So I really want to ensure that all of my patients are getting their mammograms at the appropriate age and at the appropriate interval. The next thing I think about is colon cancer and preventing colon cancer and screening for it. So this means getting colonoscopies or other appropriate screening at the appropriate age and at the appropriate intervals. We also screen for osteoporosis. Fractures, especially hip fractures, can be life-altering. So we ensure that our patients are getting screened appropriately based on their history and certain factors at the appropriate age. We also do mental health screening. So that is incredibly important. Like I mentioned before, there's many transitions that a woman goes through during her lifetime. And we want to ensure that we are providing all the resources that she needs during those transitions to ensure that they're smooth.
Such good information. I loved how you said that too. partnering together, a partnership. I think we think a lot of it as patients as like, oh, it's my checkup, I'll get to it. But really it's about the partnership and making sure that we have someone walking along with us so we're not missing these things. Dr. Sabir, something else you said earlier that really struck me was what we've heard really our whole lives. Eat your fruits, eat your vegetables. Sometimes it can be so hard to feel like you're getting the right amount in. Do you have any tricks or tips for women, again, in all stages of life, of how to know that we are getting enough of that really good nutrients in our diet?
Well, I try to incorporate fruits into all of my meals, even if it's part of dessert maybe, but ensuring that we've got fruits and vegetables. It's a little tricky to try and get vegetables in for the morning, but if you can put it, for example, in your omelet. So trying to incorporate fruits and vegetables into every single meal is really important and what I recommend to all of my patients.
Awesome. And I know you also mentioned not getting overwhelmed with the exercise. Sometimes we do try to tackle too much and just really getting out for that brisk walk. What about, you did also mention mental health, and we got to talk about that a little earlier today, but do you have specific tips when it comes to mental health for your patients and resources that you want for women to utilize to stay stress-free?
Yes. So, when we think about mental health, I think it's really important to consider it as important as any vital sign. Our mental health is critical throughout our life. And so there's a ton of research now that's saying mindfulness is really beneficial for our mental health. And, a lot of us are very busy. It's difficult to find time to focus on our mental health. So there's all of these great apps now that are out that specifically focus on mindfulness. And, this is coming from someone who is also very busy herself. I'm a mom, a full-time physician and educator. And what I like to refer back to is when I was an intern, when I was training in New York, I was working 80-hour weeks. And so I would take the subway every morning at 5:30 a.m. to work. And this would really be the time where I would turn my app on my phone for mindfulness and clock out. I would take 10 minutes, and those were my 10 minutes for myself. So what I tell patients is that you can really do this anywhere, whether it's 10 minutes at work, on a break, or while you're driving to work, even that you take 10 minutes to really ground yourself. And it doesn't have to even be that complicated. You can even take a few moments to close your eyes, focus on your breathing, and this can help ground you.
That is very good advice. I want to talk about your specialty, Dr. Sabir. I know your passion is women's sexual health, and I know that can be an embarrassing or even a hard topic for a lot of women to talk about. But there are issues that you are passionate about that you want to make sure women are aware of and they feel comfortable talking to their doctor about. Share some of those key points that you want people to know as they're watching this today that they don't need to be ashamed to ask questions about.
So, Mary, when we originally looked at the sexual response cycle, when they originally looked at it several decades ago, they thought it was very simple. It's very linear. And what we've learned over the last few decades is it's not that simple. It's a very complex interaction that involves several things. It can involve hormones, psychological factors, social factors, physiologic factors. And all of these things can come together to either enhance or inhibit a woman's sexual response. And what we've learned also is that this is incredibly common. It spans all ages amongst women. 43% of women will experience some type of sexual problem during her lifetime. So, it is very, very common. And here we are in 2021, and we're still not talking about it that much. So I think it's incredibly important that we open up this dialogue and we really normalize it. So women know that they're not alone in this. It's very common. There's a large population of women who do experience this. And again, we here as their physicians are here to partner with them, and we're really here to help them. Again, going through those transitions like postpartum, menopause can be very difficult. And it's really any time that is stressful in a woman's lifetime or any transition where we especially see women struggle with sexual issues.
Dr. Sasha Sabir, thank you so much for taking time with us today. We know that we all really, as I took away from you, just need to take care of ourselves a little bit better by putting ourselves first, asking those right questions and partnering with our physicians to make sure we are getting those screenings that we need so we can be living our best lives. Thank you so much for your time today.
It's an absolute pleasure.
All right, and now we have a special treat for all of you, a short game clinic with the greatest female golfer of our generation, Annika Sorenstam.
Hi everybody, it's Annika. Holly's asked me to give you a golf tip, and I said sure, but I'm in Lake Tahoe on spring break, so luckily I found a wedge in the garage and went out on the beach, and there's no snow, so we can do a bunch of shots right here. First of all, look at the wedge that you have in your hand. Most likely a lob wedge, an approach wedge. We have a leading edge, and then we have the back edge. When you hit a bunker shot, you really want the difference between the leading edge and the back edge. There's an angle, and that's what we call the bounce. And you really want the club to bounce in the sand because you want the sand to lift up the ball onto the green. So you're not really hitting the ball first. You're coming in with the club just in, you call it behind the ball, but just a little bit before, and then you sweep it up and through. So I'm going to show you really how it would look. So if you have a rake, so I happen to have one here, get it on a wider stance, make sure that you're solid with the lower body, because it's all about the upper body. You want the upper body to swing through, accelerate through. It's not so much using your legs on these type of shorter greenside bunker shots. So I put down the rake like this, the handle on it, and I'm going to demonstrate what it feels like when the club bounces. So it sounds and it bounces through. So if you would take that feeling onto the sand, bounce. You can see you make a nice little divot, like a dollar bill, bounce and go through. The key to hitting bunker shots is to accelerate through. So let's give this a try. I'm going to move the rake, get a ball. Want to make sure that the ball position a little bit more forward in your stance towards your right foot if you're a right-handed golfer like I am. And then if you want to visualize really where the club wants to go in, maybe in before the ball. Again, the wider stance. Let your arms hang from your shoulders. And make sure that you open up the club face. The club face is going to make sure the ball get up in the air rather than going into the lip of the bunker. Hit the target, take a backswing, swing through. Another good thing to think about the bunker shot is really how you hold the golf club. And what I mean by that is not your normal grip, but the way that you take the golf club. So if I was doing a regular shot, you would most likely take, the leading edge, having it square, and then grabbing your grip. Okay? When you're in a bunker and you want to hit it high, again, we're talking about greenside bunker shots. You want to make sure that you open up the face like this. I hope you can see that. And then grab the grip like this. So it's going to feel maybe like the club is open, but that's really what you wanted to do. Because what happens a lot of times, and I see this with how I am, a lot of times they take a regular grip, and then they're in the bunker, and then they open up the club, and you can see what happened with my hands. The hands are now open, the face is the same. And when they come into the bunker, they have the hands square, and what happens to the club face? Well, it shuts, and the ball will go low and to the left. So that's one thing to think about. It's really just grabbing it with your left hand and putting on, make sure it's open. Another thing I want to talk about is your setup. So, you want to hit it high and soft. That's when you get the ball to land softly on the green and get really close to the hole, is to make sure that your body, you have a little bit of an open stance, which means that the stance is pointing to the left of the target, but your club head is to the target. So I'm going to make a few lines here in the sand. You can see that this line is going to the target, and this is where I call the body line. So my body is standing a little left, again, shoulders, but the club head is not pointing to the target. That way it's going to feel like you're almost cutting it, because you're almost putting it outside and coming in, which helps the ball go up in the air and then land something. So just swing along the body line, and it would look something like that. It's kind of fun when you know the fundamentals. The swing is the same, just trust yourself. I think the key to hitting these bunker shots is to trust yourself. A lot of people get very nervous in the bunker. They want to hurry the shot. They want to get out of the bunker as soon as possible. And trust me, I do too. But not take that fear and turn it into something positive and focus on what you need to do and take your time. If you take your time, you're going to get out on the first try rather than hurrying and hitting 2 or 3 bunker shots. Then you have to redo it. So take your time, think about what you need to do, and then swing through. Because the last thing I want to see is this. We've all done that, and we know it doesn't work. So please, think, let the club do, and you get out, start thinking this.
What a day it has been. What a gift to be able to hear from some of these incredible women, to know that we really can take better care of ourselves physically, mentally, financially, and we don't have to do it alone. And so grateful to all of our panelists for sharing that great insight with us throughout the day today. We also want to thank our corporate partners and all of you who've been tuning in and hanging out with us so that we could share this second annual Women's Day together. I do want to put on your screen, of course, we have some pretty wonderful giveaways, and we know who the winners of those giveaways are now. So take a look here. You'll be contacted about how you'll be receiving those items. And so we congratulate you on those wins and thank you for taking part in Women's Day with us. We really can't wait for the Wells Fargo Championship. What an exciting time this is in as we are all slowly being able to get back together. So thank you for letting me spend this time with you on this Women's Day.